Israel just bombed a meeting of Iran's Supreme Council as they were literally counting votes to choose a successor to the dead Ayatollah Khamenei. While Iranian officials gathered to select their new supreme leader, Israeli missiles struck the building, killing dozens of the regime's most senior figures in a single devastating attack. Israel struck while they were counting the votes for the appointment of the supreme leader, a senior Israeli official told Fox News. Think about what that means. Iran's top leadership gathered in one location to conduct the most important political decision in the country's history, choosing who would replace Khamenei as supreme leader. And Israeli intelligence knew exactly when and where this meeting was happening. They tracked it in real time. They timed the strike for maximum effect, and they eliminated dozens more senior leaders in one operation. This is intelligence penetration so deep, it's almost unbelievable. Israel doesn't just know where individual leaders are. They know when the Supreme Council meets. They know the agenda. They know it's happening in real time. And they can strike while votes are being counted. More than 40 of Iran's most senior leaders have been killed since Operation Epic Fury began on Saturday. 40 senior officials, the supreme leader, Revolutionary Guard commanders, senior clerics, political officials, military leadership, all eliminated in less than a week. Israeli analysts estimate over 1,000 enemy combatants have been killed inside Iran since the U.S. and Israeli operations began. That's not just leadership, that's fighters, guards, military personnel across the country. The regime's command structure is fractured. Their military leadership is decimated. Their political succession is in chaos. And every time they try to reorganize, Israel strikes again. When you understand how deeply Israeli and American intelligence have penetrated Iran, what this succession strike reveals about their capabilities, and what it means that Iran can't even choose new leadership without being bombed, you'll realize this isn't just military operations. This is the systematic destruction of a regime that has lost all ability to function. Let me walk you through what actually happened, how this level of intelligence is possible, and why Iran's regime is collapsing faster than anyone predicted. Iran's Supreme Council, also known as the Assembly of Experts, is the body constitutionally empowered to select the supreme leader. After Khamenei was killed on Saturday, this council had to meet urgently to choose his successor. This isn't a formality. This is the most important decision in Iranian governance. The supreme leader is the ultimate authority in Iran's theocratic system. He controls the military, appoints judges, oversees media, directs foreign policy. Whoever the council selects becomes the most powerful person in Iran. So the meeting to choose Khamenei's successor was absolutely critical. The regime needed to establish new leadership quickly to prevent complete governmental collapse. Every hour without a designated successor is an hour of uncertainty, power struggles, and potential chaos. The Supreme Council gathered. They began deliberating. They started counting votes to determine who would be Iran's next supreme leader. And that's when Israel struck. Not before the meeting, not after. During the actual vote counting, when maximum leadership would be present, when the regime's most senior figures were all in one room conducting the most important political business. The timing is surgical, the intelligence is extraordinary, and the message is devastating. You cannot function. You cannot even choose new leadership without us knowing and stopping you. A senior Israeli official confirmed to Fox News that the strike hit while votes were being counted. That means Israel had real-time intelligence on what was happening inside that meeting room. Not just that a meeting was scheduled, not just that people were gathered, but actual awareness of the meeting's agenda and timeline. How is that possible? How does Israel know in real time that Iran's Supreme Council is counting votes for a new supreme leader? Several possibilities, all of them terrifying from Iran's perspective. Human intelligence. Someone inside the Supreme Council or their security detail is feeding information to Israeli intelligence. Every move the council makes is being reported in real time. Every decision, every vote, everything. If there's a mole that senior, the regime can't trust anyone. Every council member has to wonder, is the person next to me an Israeli agent? Is my security detail compromised? Can I trust anyone in this room? That kind of paranoia destroys organizational effectiveness. Even if they identify and eliminate the mole, the damage is done. Trust is shattered. Operations are compromised. Nobody knows who's clean. Technical intelligence. Israel has penetrated Iranian communications so thoroughly that they're intercepting everything. Phones, radios, computers, secure communication systems, all compromised. The Supreme Council probably thought they were using secure channels to coordinate the meeting. They probably thought their facility had proper electronic security. They were wrong. If Iran's most secure government communications are completely penetrated, nothing they do is secret. Every order, every movement, every plan, all known to Israeli and American intelligence. Physical surveillance. Israel has surveillance assets inside Tehran providing real-time video or signals intelligence on key government facilities, drones, satellites, monitoring equipment, something that allows them to watch the building and know when leadership arrives, when meetings begin, when votes are counted. This requires either extremely advanced technical capabilities or physical assets placed near the building. Either way, it means Iran's capital city is under constant enemy surveillance that their security forces can't detect or stop. Most likely, it's all three. Human sources providing meeting schedules and agendas. Technical intelligence intercepting communications, confirming timing and attendance. Physical surveillance tracking people entering and leaving the building. Layer those intelligence streams together, and you have real-time awareness of everything happening inside Iran's most sensitive government meetings. That's the level of penetration Israel and the United States have achieved. And it's why this strike was possible. Now let's talk about the casualties, because the numbers are staggering. More than 40 of Iran's most senior leaders killed since Saturday. The strike on the succession meeting adds to that total. We don't have exact numbers yet for how many Supreme Council members died in Tuesday's attack, but given the description of striking during vote counting, it was probably a significant portion of the council. The Supreme Council has 88 members, all senior clerics. Not all would necessarily attend every meeting, but a meeting to choose a new Supreme Leader? That's mandatory attendance. Every member would want to be present for such a historic decision. If dozens of them were in that room when Israeli missiles hit, the council is decimated. The body constitutionally empowered to choose the Supreme Leader no longer has enough members to function properly. That creates constitutional crisis. How do you choose a new Supreme Leader if the body authorized to choose is largely destroyed? How do you replace dead council members when the regime is under constant attack? Beyond the Supreme Council, the 40-plus senior leaders killed since Saturday include Revolutionary Guard commanders, senior clerics, political officials, military leaders, intelligence chiefs. These aren't mid-level bureaucrats. These are the people who actually ran the country. Policymakers, operational commanders, the institutional knowledge and leadership that made the regime function, all gone, killed in less than a week. Israeli analysts estimate over 1,000 total enemy combatants killed. That includes the senior leadership, but also soldiers, Revolutionary Guard fighters, militia members, security personnel. This is comprehensive destruction of Iran's military and political structure from top to bottom, leadership eliminated, fighting forces degraded, command structures fractured. Prime Minister Netanyahu explained the strategic objective: neutralize Iran's ballistic missile and nuclear ambitions. With these ballistic missiles, these weapons of mass death, they bombed all these countries, Netanyahu said. When they develop these ballistic missiles, they'll try and eventually they'll bomb you. This is what President Trump understood. The joint U.S.-Israeli operation is methodically destroying Iran's capacity to threaten anyone. Nuclear facilities bombed, missile production destroyed, storage depots hit, launch sites neutralized, and now leadership eliminated so thoroughly that the regime can't even organize succession. Vice President J.D. Vance emphasized this is a limited operation with clear objectives. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon and has to commit long-term to never trying to rebuild the nuclear capability. That's the endgame, not regime change for its own sake, but forcing whatever regime emerges to permanently abandon nuclear weapons under conditions where they have no choice but to accept. Let's talk about what this succession strike reveals about the broader operation, because it shows systematic targeting. Operation Epic Fury began Saturday with coordinated strikes killing Khamenei and 49 other senior leaders in the opening hours. That was the decapitation strike: cut off the head, create chaos and confusion, then sustained operations targeting nuclear facilities, military infrastructure, missile sites, Revolutionary Guard installations, degrade capability, destroy weapons systems, eliminate military threats. Now, as Iran tries to reconstitute leadership and establish succession, Israel strikes that process too. You try to choose new leaders? We kill them while they're voting. This is layered strategic targeting. First, eliminate existing leadership. Second, destroy military capability. Third, prevent reconstitution of either leadership or capability. Each layer makes the next easier. With leadership gone, military units lack coordination. With military degraded, remaining leadership lacks protection. With both destroyed, the regime cannot function. And every attempt to restore function, like choosing a new supreme leader, creates an opportunity for another strike because gathering leadership in one place creates a target. Iran is trapped. They need to choose new leadership. But gathering to do so risks being bombed. They need to coordinate military responses. But communicating creates intelligence opportunities. They need to rebuild. But every rebuilding effort is tracked and targeted. President Trump said the operation is ahead of schedule. That makes sense given the catastrophic success of the opening strikes. When you eliminate 49 senior leaders plus the supreme leader in the first few hours, you compress the timeline dramatically. Everything you plan to do over weeks might be achievable in days because the enemy is so disrupted they can't respond effectively. The regime's command structure is described as fractured. That's military terminology for completely non-functional. Units can't coordinate, orders aren't being transmitted, leadership doesn't know what forces they have or where. Communication is broken. That's what happens when you kill everyone who runs the command system. The institutional knowledge dies with them. The people who know how to coordinate military operations are dead. The people who know where units are located are dead. The people who can make strategic decisions are dead. What's left is junior officers and surviving mid-level officials who lack authority, information, and ability to coordinate. They might control individual units, but can't orchestrate theater-level operations. That's why Iranian military responses have been limited and ineffective. They're not choosing not to respond strongly. They literally cannot. The capability is destroyed. Now let's talk about Iran's counterattacks, because they have tried to respond. The State Department urged Americans to leave 14 countries across the Middle East as Iran's counterattacks intensified. The U.S. also closed 2 embassies in Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. This indicates Iranian forces or proxies are conducting attacks across the region. Probably missile and drone strikes against U.S. bases. Attacks on commercial shipping we've already discussed. Proxy militia actions in Iraq, Syria, Yemen. The Gulf Cooperation Council warned Iran it would take all necessary measures, including possible military action, in response to Tehran's missile and drone attacks. So regional states are being hit by Iranian counterattacks, and they're threatening military action against Iran. This could expand the conflict significantly if Gulf states like Saudi Arabia and UAE directly engage Iranian forces. But Iran's counterattacks, while creating regional danger, aren't stopping Operation Epic Fury. U.S. and Israeli operations continue unabated. The bombing doesn't stop. The strikes keep coming, because Iran's counterattacks are limited by the very destruction Operation Epic Fury is inflicting. They can launch some missiles and drones. They can activate some proxy forces. But their command structure is fractured, their leadership is dead, and their capability is degraded. They can't mount coordinated strategic responses. They can only conduct scattered tactical attacks that create localized damage without changing the strategic situation. Meanwhile, U.S. and Israeli forces operate with near-total superiority. They have intact command structures, functioning intelligence, operational coordination, superior technology, and they're systematically destroying what remains of Iranian capability. Let's talk about what comes next, because Iran's new leadership, whoever survives to claim that role, faces impossible choices. They've already reached out to Trump asking to talk. But how do you negotiate when Israel is bombing your succession meeting? How do you establish authority when your predecessors keep dying? Whoever eventually emerges as Iran's new leadership will be chosen by whoever survives these strikes. The Supreme Council is being killed, so either remaining council members choose someone quickly before they die too, or the selection process breaks down entirely and new leadership is simply whoever seizes power by force. Either way, that leadership takes power knowing they're completely outmatched. They can't protect their own succession meetings. They can't defend their territory. They can't stop enemy strikes. They have no leverage. So when they negotiate with Trump, they're negotiating from total weakness. Trump can demand complete nuclear disarmament, missile program elimination, changes to regional behavior, release of hostages, everything he wants. And Iran's new leadership has no choice but to accept because the alternative is continued destruction. This is the strategic outcome Trump and Netanyahu wanted, not just military victory, but political capitulation. Force Iran to accept terms they would never agree to under normal circumstances because the alternative is regime annihilation. Here's the bottom line and why this matters. Israel struck Iran's Supreme Council while they were counting votes to choose Khamenei's successor. Real-time intelligence, surgical strike. More senior leaders dead. Over 40 of Iran's most senior officials killed since Saturday. Supreme leader, Revolutionary Guard commanders, senior clerics, political leaders, all eliminated in 1 week. Israeli estimates over 1,000 enemy combatants killed total, leadership decimated, military degraded, command structure fractured. The regime cannot function. They can't even choose new leadership without being bombed. Israeli and American intelligence penetration is so deep that nothing Iran does is secret. Operation Epic Fury is ahead of schedule. Sustained operations continue with no signs of slowing. U.S. closed embassies, urged Americans to leave 14 countries, regional conflict intensifying. Iran's new leadership, whoever survives, already asked Trump to talk, but they have no leverage. They're negotiating from total weakness after watching their predecessors killed while trying to organize succession. This is systematic destruction of a regime, not just military defeat, but complete inability to function. Every attempt to reconstitute, choosing leaders, coordinating forces, rebuilding capability, gets targeted and destroyed. The succession strike is the most dramatic example yet, the most important political meeting in Iran's history, bombed while votes were being counted, because Israel knew, in real time, and struck with precision. Iran's regime is collapsing, not slowly, not gradually, fast, catastrophically, completely. 40 senior leaders dead. Supreme Council bombed during succession vote. Over 1,000 killed. Command structure fractured, and operations continue. This is what maximum pressure looks like. This is what overwhelming military superiority achieves. This is regime destruction in real time. Israel struck while they counted votes, the most powerful intelligence operation and military strike of the entire war. And it shows Iran has lost. Completely.